Okay, thank you for joining us here on this live. Let me just invite Malkie to join me. The camera at some point soon. Because, yeah, she's been very needy today. Why is it not inviting Malkie to join me? Oh, hang on. It did. It did invite Malkie. Here she is.
Hold on.
Hello.
Let me just turn this video around because I am catching on to that necessity. Okay, sorry about this. I'm having some minor technical difficulties. The dog.
Okay, I'm sitting on the floor. I'm sitting on the floor because my cat needs attention. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Right.
So okay then.
We have animals in our lives.
We do have animals in our lives. And just in case anyone new is joining us, just so you know, I am Havva Mahler, expert in Chinese medicine and traditional Chinese astrology. And with me is
Malkie Rimon, and I am if I may say so myself, because I'm really feeling it today, a kick-ass life coach.
Oh, I love hearing that. Okay, and welcome to Thriving Sex.
Yes, because it does.
I'm sorry, if I don't throw this bouncy ball, then it's going to get very noisy in here. I apologize if I make anyone seasick by moving. Sweetheart, yeah, I am home alone right now, by which I mean there are no other humans in the house, and if I lock them out of the room, it's just going to be nonstop screaming and flinging themselves against the door.
They're not like needy or anything like that. No.
No. And obviously one should never have boundaries with pets or children.
Obviously not. Yes, because no.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gathered here today to discuss where the bouncy ball went, and also
we're in Boundaries Part 2, where we said that we would continue by answering a question that Bunny left. And I have this, I watched the video several times to try and get the exact wording I gave up. I've got the gist of the person's question. By the way, can I just distract us for a second? Look, it's a paper wedding. This is a wedding invitation. It's a paper, I put on the back. It's a paper wedding invitation. Oh, do you remember those? They're like long
the first time I got a digital wedding invitation, and everyone was like, do they not have money for printing? Like, we don't want to say anything, but should we be raising a donation basket? But no, it was just the start.
They were just that cutting edge.
Yeah.
But apparently this still goes on in some parts of our culture. So
congratulations.
I was shocked. I was like, shouldn't this be a WhatsApp? and like where's the button that I press to just put this directly in my calendar? I don't get it. Okay, not that bad, but I did repurpose the envelope. So, okay.
Okay, so on that envelope.
So basically the gist of it was that he works with a lot of women, or she works with a lot of women that don't have clear boundaries, and the word they used was vast. So I'm not quite sure if they meant vastly unclear or vast boundaries, or boundaries that are so overreaching as to becoming meaningless, because that is one of the possibilities. So what ends up happening is that probably they don't have an understanding of where their boundaries can be, should be, or what, and then they suppress or get depressed. And what can this person do to make them realize where their boundaries should be?
All right, that's a great question. And honestly, my first thought is you can't make people do anything.
Yeah, basically.
Like, Bunny just needs to start with understanding where their own boundaries are.
Exactly.
If you want help, you can't make people do anything, and you can't. No. You can present information.
Right.
And that
women want to come or men want to come and listen to us talk about boundaries and work. And obviously it can work individually with either of us, or they want to really get into that. They want to hear a discussion about it. They want tips and ideas. We're here. Make someone realize it's categorically impossible. Like, that is exactly a boundary violation right there.
Well, and I also think it's something it's really important for both of us to know, because we do work one-on-one with people who come to us for help, that we can't fix them and we can't make them better. And I was actually talking to a woman last week who she was saying something like she doesn't feel like she can make progress in her place of work. She can't force things to happen because she is just a counselor and not a therapist, and so she can't tell people what to do. And I was like, okay, so obviously there's a lot of issues going on here, and there's things that can be worked on, but therapists should not tell people what to do either.
Right.
And they can't fix things either.
No.
All we can do.
What we do is we hold people's hands while they fix things.
Exactly.
And that's a lot. That's not a small thing.
It can be everything, I think.
Yeah.
Like just knowing that someone believes you and someone's there with you.
Yes.
And certainly someone's giving you tips on where to avoid pitfalls that they've fallen into, maybe.
Right. Although a service I actually provide to my clients, although they might not realize it, is that I don't believe them. Which sounds really terrible, doesn't it? Like, I don't believe a word my clients say, but I don't, because it doesn't help them. Mm-hmm. I'm here to be of service. And being of service does not mean absolute validation and agreeing with everything the client says. It just doesn't. So if that sounds like a good deal to you, you want somebody to look at you and to listen really closely and go, hold on a second, wait, these things don't line up. Or
I'm interrupting you for 1 second because I am freezing, and I'm going to close the window that my other cat was sitting in. So I apologize if anyone gets seasick watching.
How are you freezing? It was summer today. Oh,
it was summer today. It was summer today, and I'm in the desert, and the sun went down, and it was still nice and warm when we started talking. We've been talking for 8 minutes was enough time. The last of the heat has drained out of the desert, and it is now freezing. Right. Well, honestly, but to take us back to
this question, I'd actually like to look at
what you said about not believing your clients. So I was talking to a friend of mine today who I have not been in touch with for a while, just because both of our lives are really busy. And I said to her, I feel really bad that I haven't reached out more, and I feel like I've been a bad friend recently. And she was like, no, that's my line. You can't take it. And then afterwards she said, I'm starting to feel maybe like what you feel when I'm always going on about what a bad friend I am because I'm not getting in touch enough. And this doesn't feel good either. So maybe I'll try and stop saying I'm a bad friend so you don't have to be reassuring me all the time. And
that's enormous. That's yeah.
So sometimes we just need people to not believe in us.
Yes, or to believe in us so much. I think it's the opposite. It's that I believe in my clients so much.
More than they believe in them.
Sometimes, but it's more that that believing in my client doesn't mean that I believe in their BS.
Brilliant. Okay, I have another tangent beckoning at me. So let's get back to our question before we go.
Sure. So the point of this that I thought would be really interesting to talk about is the lack of boundaries creating suppression of emotion and depression. So I thought that was also a really interesting point. So what do you want to say about that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, one of the things that boundaries do is they create space for things. And I think about when people say, "Oh, your kid's just pushing your boundaries." When your kid's pushing your boundaries, it's because they need to know where the boundaries are, because they need to know where's a safe place and where the line is beyond which they can't go. And if I don't know what my boundaries are, if I don't know what the boundaries are around me, then I'm not necessarily safe to express myself. If I don't know how people around me will react, if I don't know how I'll react to their behavior. So I think that's definitely definitely like not having boundaries will lead to not just maybe difficulties with how other people behave, but also not being sure how I'll behave.
Yes.
And then needing to suppress or feeling like I need to suppress my reactions because I don't know what my reactions are going to be.
Yes. And in terms of suppression of emotion, okay, so I want to tell the story, although it doesn't make any sense to me yet. So I think as I tell it, will make it make sense. A friend of mine gave me a stack of flimsy notebooks that are they're just flimsy. That's what they are. It's the best possible word, and they annoy me no end because I like to write with the things on my lap, and a flimsy notebook is just a pain because I now always look for something to put under it. It's just a pain. I don't like it. I prefer buying higher quality notebooks with harder covers so that they work for me. And I wanted to tell myself, but I needed a notebook right then and there because I needed to put down ideas that were coming and they needed out. Right. This is sometimes I only know what I'm thinking after I write it down. This is unique to my brain.
No.
What?
No, I don't think it's just you.
No, I don't. I know it's not just me, but I also have many clients who are like, I don't understand what you just said. So it's not. I don't believe that out of like how many billions of people on the planet, I'm the only one who does this. That's ridiculous. But I do find that a lot of times I only know what I'm thinking after it comes out. The pen wrote it. I was like, hey. So I needed a pen. I needed a notebook right there. So I go for the flimsy ones, and I'm complaining about the notebook. I'm like, and what I want to say is, I start the sentence with, I am so sorry about that. Am I still here?
You're back. You're back.
Okay, yeah, people don't know not to contact me. I'm going to have a little conversation. And I don't know how to block things from my phone so that they don't. I'll have to figure that one out. Okay, sorry, everybody. So I want to write the words that are coming out what I want to believe is, I don't like this notebook, but it's okay. And I realized that no, it's not okay. Like, I really don't like this flimsy notebook, and it is okay that I don't like this flimsy notebook. And right now I'm choosing to use it. I'm choosing to accept that this is not my preference. This is not okay with me. But I need the paper right now, and I'm willing to trade off paper quality for immediacy, right? So I'm not quite sure exactly. Like, I was hoping you can help me like figure out how this works in terms of what we're talking about. I just know that it does.
Okay. Well, I think that there's something to. I think that in Chinese philosophy, boundaries and clarity are the same energy. So I think that when you're saying to yourself, this is okay, like that meme of the dog in the cafe that's on fire, right? This is fine. There's a complete lack of clarity there.
Right. Yeah.
But saying to yourself, I'm not happy about this, but this is the choice I'm making. Choosing, like making choices, by the way, is also the same energy. They're all bound up together. Like this is the situation. I'm seeing it clearly, but this is the choice I'm making. That's using your metal energy appropriately. It's the exact same energy as saying, this is my boundary, and this is how I'm choosing to respond, or this is the space that I have set aside for this event or for this behavior or to experience this emotion. It's all the same. It's the exact same energy from my perspective.
Can you explain what metal energy is, like big picture, one more time for our listeners who might be new here?
Yes. So in Chinese medicine, in Chinese philosophy, there's a system which was very poorly translated as the 5 elements, where the word that's translated as element is actually a word that expresses movement and change. So it's not the idea that like the universe is made up of little tiny bits of metal and water and fire, but rather we can look at the relationships between different natural phenomenon in order to explore how change and movement happens in the universe. And so we can say, for example, that like the relationship between this person and her mother-in-law is the same as the relationship between metal and fire. Where fire melts metal, metal tries to resist the fire. If there's too much metal, the fire won't be able to melt it, but the metal usually can't smother a fire all on its own. It needs to bring in water or earth for that. So using these terms lets us look at the relationships between things. And we're talking about each element individually. Then it represents a whole bundle of concepts that are seen as basically being the same thing, in the sense that if you play a musical note on different instruments, it will sound different, but there's still a relationship between them. Okay, and so the process of trees losing their leaves, like in the fall, the trees decide, the trees are programmed to cut off parts of themselves that will take more nutrition over the course of the winter than they're going to give back into the system. That process of shedding the leaves is an expression of metal energy. When we exhale, when we breathe out and we release carbon dioxide out of our bloodstream, that's an expression of metal energy. The metal represents, at its deepest level, the ability to assign value to something. So to say, this is good or not good for me or in general. And so when we're talking about like being able to see things clearly, that's metal energy. We're talking about a boundary. A boundary is stating exactly what's mine and not mine, what's good for me, what's not good for me. When we're talking about making decisions, it's the same thing. We have to weigh up the value of things, and then we have to be able to clearly see which option we want to take. And so all of that is an expression of metal energy, from the trees outside to, if I walk up behind my cat and I surprise her and she turns around and slashes with her claws, the survival instinct is also an expression of metal energy. It's seeing what I need to do in order to keep myself alive, assuming that I see myself as something that has value. And so actually, if we're circling way back around to the original question we were talking about, when Bunny said that, that the women that they work with who don't have boundaries end up experiencing depression, if I'm not seeing myself as valuable enough to defend, then I'm also not going to see myself as valuable enough to be worth investing in or keeping alive necessarily. And that is certainly one of the emotions that can be expressed as depression.
Yes. I think for me that story was me, just now that I told, was me choosing or having the skill, more accurately, not first choice, I think is more having the skill to not suppress, to say, this isn't working for me, and I choose to go, and I choose this anyway. Because sometimes I think that's just how things work in the real world. Right, exactly. Sometimes in the real world, you are faced with not with the suboptimal choices, and you have to choose the least bad choice.
But as long as you're the one who's choosing to accept the least bad choice, then then that's still you.
Yes.
And that's still your decision. And so it's not that your boundaries are being violated from outside.
Right.
But you're choosing when to open the gate and let something in, even if you wouldn't in an ideal world.
But I think that my initial thought was actually a form of violating my own boundaries, my desire to have it be okay when actually it wasn't. Right? That's where I think that when we're working on boundaries, that's where to start, is the keeping agreements to ourselves, or being able that, and also being able to recognize within ourselves when something just isn't working or frustrating us.
Well, that's like, if we're looking again at like a symbolic or metaphorical representation. So if your boundary is like an actual, it's a fence that you set up, and you're like, everything inside this fence is okay. And then you have something that's not okay, but you want it to be okay. Maybe you're moving your fence into a place it shouldn't go.
Right.
And maybe you're going to put your fence on unsteady ground, and the fence post won't stay up, and it'll fall over, and all your goats will escape. I grew up on a farm.
Okay.
Whereas, if you're saying this isn't okay, but for the moment I'm going to use it, then that's like, instead of dragging your fence posts out somewhere where you can't actually fix them in the ground, you're opening the gate up, letting something in. You're keeping an eye on it. Maybe you're keeping it tied up so it can't get into the garden and eat all the tomatoes. But
Right.
But you're making a decision and you're working with the situation rather than trying to make something work that doesn't work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are ways so we touched on this concept of indefensible boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
you just touched on it again. How can someone tell if their boundaries are indefensible? And what does
I'm a big
that
believer.
mean?
I'm a big believer that we tell things based on the results. Um, so like you said, sometimes you have to write things down in order to know what you're thinking. I think that a lot of the time, if we look at the results of what we've done so far, we can understand whether it's working or not. And so if your boundaries aren't working for you, if they're not making you feel safer, if they don't make you feel secure, if they don't make you feel like you have a safe space to exist in, then then they're probably in the wrong place. Maybe they're in way too close and they're letting things get too close to you, and you need stronger, more established boundaries. But it could be also you're trying to hold them too far out and spreading yourself too thin.
Mm-hmm.
But if your metal energy is healthy, then you should feel safe and secure.
Right. So what are some of the things that we can do to increase our metal energy?
Oh, so like I said, this energy it can be expressed in all different areas of life, and so you can do breathing exercises. Breathing exercises is a way of exploring where I begin and end in relation to the wider universe. You can get a massage. You can eat foods that boost your immune system. Your immune system will also be an expression of metal energy. Getting enough sleep, obviously, and especially going to sleep and getting up at the same time every day, if possible, will help build that sense of routine and boundary and schedules and everything into your system. Spicy foods and like hot spicy drinks strengthen the metal energy if you don't overdo it. But in my Moroccan neighbors say that in the summer you should drink very hot spice like hot spicy like hot drinks with lots of herbs in them in order to make yourself sweat, because by sweating you're cooling down. And sorry, there's a mosquito in here with me.
Yeah.
Really good way to get a feeling for your boundaries. And so
as a Soviet,
yeah,
the Soviet part of me grew up drinking hot tea during the summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So eating or drinking just enough spiciness to let your pores open and let yourself sweat is another way of feeling where you interact with the universe, feeling exactly where your skin is. Doing things like gratitude meditations is a good way of strengthening your metal energy, strengthening your ability to tell what you value and appreciate. Doing those walking mazes. Are you familiar with them? Not like a maze you can't see, but like it's just a picture on the ground and you walk through it. That sort of walking type, kind of that meditative walking. It's literally a physical expression of staying within boundaries.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then anything related to ritual will generally also help. And I think a lot of traditional cultures have rituals whose purpose is to establish boundaries. Like, what's the boundary between normal life and a period of mourning or a period of joy, or times that are set aside for specific things, or objects that are set aside for specific uses. Those are all ways of practicing holding a boundary.
Yeah. And this is where the 1960s really did a number on the West, on basically Western cultures, where there was a dissolution of all of that.
The 1960s were a huge expression of wood energy. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and it was all about breaking free of boundaries, and there are a lot of casualties there.
Yeah. I actually was literally reading an article today where someone was saying that he started from like Nietzsche and the death of God concept, but saying that the problem with modern life is that the responsibility for coming up with a morality and system to live by it has fallen on the individual, and that's too big for any one individual.
This is true. Yes.
Yeah.
So what that also translates into, that there's a cultural, that boundaries as we know them have a cultural and religious component that is that's probably in the liminal, it's in kind of an assumed space, that we assume that other people in our culture or in our world will have the same idea of what you can talk about, what you can't talk about, because boundaries, right? So it means that there's a cultural component to it, and also means that the reason that we need to be upholding the boundaries that we have now, and that people are talking about it more, is because of exactly this fall.
It enables us to interact safely. Usually when people are talking about cultural misunderstandings, it's a question of boundaries. It's a question of what is it considered polite to talk about or not to talk about, or how close to get to someone, how far into their personal space, what things can you take without asking, or how long you give someone to speak before you interrupt them even.
Or if interrupting is the height of rudeness or the height of politeness, which is in some cultures, interrupting.
Absolutely. Hi.
Speaking of which, thank you, Kat.
Speaking of which, yes. Who needs personal space? Not kitties. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
They want
my
space.
dog definitely has some ideas about personal space. There shouldn't be any.
Sometimes she wants her personal space, but she definitely doesn't understand why I would ever need it. No. All right. Well, I have to go in 2 minutes.
Okay.
I feel like we've started to scrape the surface of the concept of boundaries.
Yeah. I think that this whole idea that we are looking at boundaries the way we are today because of the dissolution of boundaries in in the culture is actually that's kind of a terrifying thought, honestly, but it's also a very real thought.
Yeah. And I think it's leading to some backlash. So, all right. So maybe next time we keep talking about boundaries. Boundaries as a cultural.
But we need to tell people that we are not meeting next week on Tuesday.
We have not meeting.
Yes, we have the holiday of Purim to celebrate, which is wonderful and exciting. And then we will be back the week after. And are we going to be back on YouTube, or are we going to be back here? What have we decided on?
We have not agreed that yet. We
have not agreed that yet. We will let you know. It will be
it will be all over the internet. All over the internet for like the 18 people who follow us.
Isn't it great? 18, that's a lot.
That's wonderful. If you want to find out where we'll be in 2 weeks, but we will be back 2 weeks from now on Tuesday.
And at an earlier time. We're aiming for 6:30 now.
6:30.
And then I'll have the hard cutoff to pick up my daughter from theater.
Okay. 6:30 Israel time, and we will post what that is in all sorts of other time zones. But it's an hour and a half earlier than we have been starting.
Right.
Okay. And we will let you know the exact details once we have finalized them. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. And feel free to submit any questions you have if you want to know about our opinions on boundaries or basically anything else.
Right.
We love to share our opinions with people.
Yes, we do.
And we have lots of them.
Really? You could tell.
I'm sure someone might have picked up on it. All right. I have to go. It was great talking to you. Thank you to everyone who watched. And especially if you're watching the replay.
Yes, especially. And thank you for
Joining
staying
us
to the
live, but
end.
if you stuck through to the end of a replay, that's amazing.
That is
All
very cool.
right,
Yes.
and I will see you in
Okay.
2 weeks.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.